Yeah.
So we had an autistic individual who actually did have very limited verbal communication. They were undertaking a customer service apprenticeship at level 2. And part of that endpoint assessment was a professional discussion. Now, obviously, that's going to completely disadvantage that individual.
Yeah.
So we worked with the endpoint assessment organisation. We provided all the evidence of the reasonable adjustments that was required for that individual whilst they were on programme, and their assessment, diagnosis, etc. May even include the education healthcare plan if they've got one.
Yep.
That endpoint assessment organisation was then able to apply to get the actual assessment changed to question and answer written rather than verbal professional discussion. That individual passed their endpoint assessment because we were able to make those changes.
Right.
Additionally to that, there was extra time, obviously, to be able to read the question and answer it for processing speed. So we requested extra time, and the actual assessment was done over a longer length of time, quite significantly, to allow that individual to have it in chunks rather than all in one go. So, you know, that endpoint assessment organisation, that partnership working together really made a difference and enabled that individual, I believe, to pass their endpoint assessment. So it's a really good example of working together. Had another individual who was doing an adult care level 2 apprenticeship who had memory difficulties, so in particular, and processing speed. So in particular, if you were verbally communicating, that individual would have difficulty remembering what you just said. So for endpoint assessment, extra time.
Yeah.
Also suffered with anxiety, so we had put breaks in there as well, just to give time to breathe and calm down, etc. But also any verbal communication was backed up with written communication, so that individual could read and go back to what was being asked to help them. That individual got a merit on endpoint assessment. So it's just these little tweaks. They're not major, but the little tweaks that can make a difference. We're currently working with an individual who is deaf, who is undertaking a business and admin level 3. We work in partnership with British Sign Language interpreters, and that will be embedded into the endpoint assessment. I think from our perspective, so we're ensuring we're not disadvantaging a learner, is making sure that we are preparing that learner for endpoint assessment throughout the on programme, and that is using the endpoint assessment methods in the assessment on programme. It gets them used to it, it gets them practicing, and it's not a shock to the system or anything like that. And I think that's particularly important for individuals maybe that have had trauma in their past, who maybe aren't as resilient as others, etc. It's really, really important to make sure that you embed it.